We are reporting tonight on a story that is, by any measure, difficult to comprehend. It involves a hospital bed, a father reportedly fighting for his life, and a television appearance that has left royal commentators and the public alike using one word: evil. The distance between Prince Harry and his wife's estranged father, Thomas Markle, has always been vast. But what is being alleged now? It suggests a chasm of humanity that is shocking even by the standards of this fractured family. If you follow the stories that test the very limits of royal relationships, you need to be here. Welcome to Royal Report 24/7. And if you want to understand the full, unfolding context of this deeply troubling situation, make sure you're with us for the long haul. Subscribe and tap the like button now. Sharing this discussion helps bring these complex stories to light. Now, let's navigate this distressing report. The foundation of this story rests on two deeply serious, yet still developing, claims. First, from sources close to Thomas Markle in Mexico, comes the report that Meghan's 79-year-old father is in a hospital in what is described as a very serious condition. These sources have used phrases like close to death and fighting his final battles, painting a picture of a man in grave health, isolated from the daughter he hasn't seen or spoken to in years. The second claim, which has ignited the firestorm, involves Prince Harry. It is reported that just as this grave news about Thomas Markle was emerging, Harry was filming or participating in a new, high-profile television project. The precise nature of the project varies by report. Some suggest it was a light-hearted segment, others an interview. But the consistent allegation is that it was a staged, televised stunt, and that Harry was reportedly made aware of his father-in-law's deteriorating condition either just before or during its filming. The reaction from certain quarters of the media and from commentators has been swift and brutal. The word evil has been deployed. The accusation is one of breathtaking callousness, that a man, upon hearing news of a potential family death, chose to continue with a performance for cameras and cash. It is framed as the ultimate act of cruelty in a long saga of estrangement. But before we accept this narrative at face value, we must, as we always do here at Royal Report 24/7, press pause. We must separate the reported facts from the frenzied interpretation, because the space between those two things is where the real, human tragedy resides. Let's examine the first claim: Thomas Markle's health. This is a man with a documented history of serious heart issues. His non-appearance at Meghan's wedding due to a heart attack is a matter of public record. Reports of his ill health are, sadly, plausible and must be treated with sensitivity. The true, verifiable state of his condition, however, is known only to his immediate caregivers and family. The language used by his associates is dramatic, and it arrives within the context of a very public, years-long campaign by Mr. Markle for reconciliation, or at least for attention. This does not make his potential suffering any less real, but it adds a complex layer to how the news is communicated to the world. Now, to the second, more incendiary claim: Harry's alleged TV stunt. This is where the story becomes a minefield of assumptions. The first question is one of timing. Did Harry know? Reportedly, yes, according to these same sources. But reportedly is the key. We have no independent confirmation of what Harry was told, when he was told, or the precise clinical prognosis he received. Did he receive a panic call saying your father-in-law is dying, or a more general update that his health has taken a bad turn? In crisis, that distinction is everything. Furthermore, what was the nature of his commitment? Was this a long-scheduled interview with a major network, with dozens of crew and contractual obligations already in motion? Was it a segment for the Invictus Games, the cause that is the cornerstone of his life's work? The blanket term stunt is designed to demean and provoke. It implies frivolity. But the reality of a pre-scheduled, professionally obligated filming day is often one of immense logistical and financial pressure to proceed, even amidst personal shock. This is not to excuse potential coldness, but to understand the mechanism. Imagine the scenario. A producer whispers urgent, yet vague, news in his ear minutes before going on set. Does he walk off, causing a minor international incident, and breaching a contract based on unconfirmed information from a source he fundamentally distrusts? Or does he, as many public figures have done throughout history, compartmentalize his personal shock, perform his professional duty with a heavy heart, and deal with the private fallout the moment the cameras stop rolling? The insiders we often hear from, those in the royal commentariat, are interpreting his decision through a specific lens. The lens of the Sussexes' ongoing war with the media and their total estrangement from Thomas Markle. From that vantage point, any continued public performance is seen as a deliberate, calculated snub, a final, cruel rejection. It fits a pre-written narrative of heartlessness. But there's another, more human perspective, one far less discussed. That of profound, complicated grief. The relationship between Meghan, Harry, and Thomas Markle is not merely strained. It is obliterated. It is a landscape of betrayal, of paid-for photographs, of relentless television interviews. For years, Thomas Markle has been, in their view, not a father figure, but a persistent source of public pain and exploitation. The news of his grave illness does not necessarily trigger simple, filial sorrow. It can trigger a hurricane of conflicting emotions, residual anger, profound sadness for what was lost long ago, and the grim, quiet guilt that sometimes accompanies a permanent estrangement. For Harry, his primary duty is to his wife. His loyalty is to her trauma. If Meghan has chosen, for her own mental preservation, to build an impenetrable wall between herself and her father, Harry's role is to stand guard at that wall, even in the face of death. To the outside world, this can look inhuman. To those inside the fortress, it can feel like the only possible form of protection. The reported use of the word evil, however, tells us less about Harry and more about the boiling point of public sentiment. It reflects a growing narrative that the Sussexes, in their quest for autonomy and their war against perceived injustice, have crossed a moral event horizon, that their pain has curdled into something darker, that the living by our own truth has become a license for a kind of emotional ruthlessness. What does this leave us? With a potentially dying man in a Mexican hospital, a daughter who cannot or will not reach out, a son-in-law performing his public role under a cloud of horrific headlines, and a world watching, rushing to judge with incomplete information. This is the tragedy of the modern royal story, amplified to its most agonizing volume. It is no longer about protocol or tiaras. It is about the most primal human bonds, father and child, shattered beyond recognition on the global stage. And whether the actions being described are coldly calculated or desperately compartmentalized, the outcome is the same, a profound and echoing sadness. These are the stories that defy easy answers, the human complexities that get lost in the headlines. To follow this developing and deeply personal situation with the nuance and context it deserves, you need a source committed to looking beyond the fury. Be that source with us. Subscribe to Royal Report 24/7. Like this video to support thoughtful commentary, and share to continue this necessary conversation. In the quiet, beyond the noise, is where the truth eventually resides. We'll be here, listening for it.